Taking a gap year before medical school can actually be a good thing, and here's a few reasons why. Hey, what's going on, guys? My name is Abhinav, and this is Dr. Squared. I'm a first-year MD PhD student, and today I want to talk a little bit about the gap year, things that you do before med school that could possibly even help you get into med school. So first, we got to lay out some things that might designate a gap year. So what are some reasons that you would actually want to take a gap year? Sometimes you're actually forced to take a gap year because you didn't get into med school the first time. You submit your apps in junior year, maybe the summer after, and then you wait all of senior year, and unfortunately you just didn't get into med school. At that point, if you're still interested in med school, you're kind of forced to take a gap year when you want to reapply the following year. Similarly, on that note, maybe you want to take a gap year to actually study for the MCAT a little bit more. In that case, you actually study throughout the entire year and prepare your application, and then you can submit your new MCAT score in order to be more competitive. Kind of on the opposite spectrum of the MCAT, which is a standardized test, maybe you need to improve your GPA, and a GPA can be improved with a post-bac program. Now, this might not technically be a gap year, but it is possibly like a one-year program that you could do before med school that can strengthen your application by increasing your GPA and showing med school admissions committees that you're actually capable of med school curriculums. And finally, maybe you just want to take a break. You've been doing like 16 years of school, and now you're applying to med school, which is going to be the rest of your life. Like, that's medicine, that's your career. So maybe you want to take a break, and there's honestly nothing wrong with that as long as you're responsible. And we'll get into a little bit more about what you can do if you do take a break and you want to do a gap year. Now, tying all that in together, what do you actually do during your gap year? I gave some reasons why you might want to do a gap year, but once you're in it, like, what do you do? So take, for instance, you didn't get in the first time. Maybe you actually want to do a full-time job while you're reapplying to med school. Now, the med school application, it takes a lot out of you, and especially doing it another time after your first time, it can be a lot. Maybe you didn't even do it the first time, and maybe you just wanted to do a gap year. Still, you should really do something during your year before med school. What I did personally was do a full-time job, and it was a great way to get some money while also keeping busy and showing med school committees that you're actually doing something clinical-based possibly that would really help in strengthening your application, but also that you are mature enough and you can take on these responsibilities of actually being in the real world and doing a job. You can also do an internship, which unfortunately many of them, especially once you come right out of college, might not be paid, but they're a great way to get some experience. And in line with that, maybe some research as well. And what would really help is doing research at the school that you plan to apply to, maybe your dream school or something. That would show admissions committees that you are into that community and you want to help, and also that you're doing research, obviously only if you like it. But that can be a great way to show the admissions committee that you're dedicated to that school, and also you're willing to look into the further understandings of science, and ultimately that's what half of medicine is like, just understanding the science. Another step you can take is volunteering. Volunteering is a great way to engage with the community, and if it's clinical based, that's even more points because that shows that you're really dedicated into serving the community. Now, what about those people that want to travel, huh? Well, if you do want to travel, like, go see the world. Once you get into med school, you're not going to have that much time. I mean, honestly, the last summer break that you'll have is between first and second year of med school, and might as well travel while you can because you might not get the big opportunities like you do right now. And if you do want to travel, make it like fun. Like, this is like your time, right? But do not travel for like a whole year. Traveling for a whole year, like, that's just a little too much time. During your gap year, you really want to stay and strengthen your application. Yes, you can travel for a few months, but take the time to strengthen your application by doing something else. What I already mentioned, like a full-time job, volunteering, internship, whatever you want. But as long as you can strengthen your application, you can show that you're still dedicated and you're not just traveling for like a whole year, I think that would be a great decision to do. That kind of ties in on what you need to do when you write your application about this gap year. When you travel, I wouldn't actually say that you're traveling. Save that for the interview. When you do the interview, say that you did travel and explore different cultures and stuff. But in your application, focus on the things that you did outside of traveling. So if that's work, if that's strengthening your clinical experiences or your research or things like that, that would really show the admissions committee that you're dedicated through your gap year, and while you're still applying to med school, that you are still thinking about it and that's the direction you want to go. No matter what you do, you need to explain how it enhanced your desire to get into med school. So that can be pretty easy if you do like research or something. But if you do a full-time job, try to pick a job that's more science-based. It could be in the pharmacology thing that I did. I went into like pharmaceutical industry and did work for a little bit. Maybe it can be into COVID testing. I did a little bit of that as well, and that can be easily explained in the clinical application. But it could be anything. Like try to like make it so that you can connect it in some way to being a doctor, and that will give you the best chances of impressing the admissions committee. And honestly, here's a little secret. Most med school students are actually fairly older than you might think. The average matriculant might be 24, 25-ish. It changes like pretty frequently, but people actually don't go to med school that frequently right out of college. Well, that can obviously be skewed by the bigger numbers in age. Well, like, that kind of skews the population and the statistics. But there's a lot of people that don't go directly into med school, and taking gap years, plural, like you could take multiple gap years and then apply to med school, is actually a pretty common thing, and it actually might help you out in your application. This is because you actually get more experience the longer you are outside of school. You get to learn more about the trade, you get to learn more life lessons and navigate the real world. All of that is actually pretty impressive for med school committees. They actually look for how much responsibility, how mature are you, and how that can translate into being a physician. And honestly, there are a lot of people that get straight into med school after college, but if you don't, it's okay. That can be a learning opportunity and a way to mature yourself by gaining more experiences, and it actually might strengthen your application. And make sure you implement this all throughout your application cycle, including the interview. If you did a job, make sure you explain how it relates to you becoming a physician. If you did research, maybe try to explain how that can enhance your way of taking care of patients or something. And if you get into an MD PhD program, it's even more points. Now here's an interesting question. Maybe you should take a gap year intentionally. Maybe that you actually don't want to go into med school right after college. It can be a way to actually relax and actually get some money. When you get some money, that can actually help you with your application cycle. The things are like really expensive, and also your fees, and maybe even renting. When you rent an apartment, like that can be offset by the money that you made. And if you have a car, like transportation, there's just so many hidden fees that come with going to med school, and getting some money beforehand can actually really help out. On top of that, taking a gap year can help you build your app. I already said this before, but people that take gap years have more life experiences and actually might have a better time in matriculating to med school. So it's a great way to build your application, great way to show that admissions committees that you are dedicated, and it's a great way to boost your application. And finally, maybe taking a gap year can actually help you know yourself. It's like kind of introspective in that sense, where you go and live in the real world, get some more experience, and maybe you think about if you really want to become a physician, because it's a long road and it's a lot of things to do throughout your next 8 years, including med school and residency. Like that, it's a long time. And maybe you don't actually want to go to med school. Maybe you want to do something else, but it's just like kind of similar. Like maybe taking a gap year can actually help you figure out what you really want to do and if medicine is a real path for you. And I say this all as a person that actually took a gap year. And I gotta say, it was a great thing that happened because it really enhanced my application and also enhanced my thinking towards medicine. And I'm really glad that it happened. But other than that, that's about it. Like, honestly, gap years are kind of underrated, and more people are going towards them than not. Like, the traditional pathway is becoming traditional, and it's becoming a little like old school now. A lot more people are taking gap years. That's not to say that you can't go into the traditional route and go straight into med school. If you do, that's awesome for you. I mean, you're saving some years, and that's a great thing to do. But don't discount a gap year. So with that being said, that's about it. Please do hit the like button and subscribe if you really liked it. I hope to make more videos soon on the med school application, and thanks for everything. All right, bye.